Good morning from a beautiful spring day in New York. Just over a week ago, the Indigenous Forum at the United Nations came to an end after 2 weeks of meetings, discussions, panel and side events. The forum opened with the dramatic call of the conch, and the theatre was a blaze of colour. The brilliant blue and red of the Sami from the Arctic, the feathered headdresses from participants from Mexico and the United States, painted faces from the Amazonians, bejeweled headdresses from Iran, brilliant colours from across the globe. There was a feeling of great joy there as Indigenous people came together in solidarity to share their experiences, to speak to the UN and to the people of the world about their issues. That colour, that joy, that meeting was offset time and time again by stories of dispossession, dislocation, of loss of culture and language, of climate change, of the inroads of modernity and of the lack of consultation. I was particularly moved by a side event I went to where a small group of Amazonian men spoke to us, and the leader talked of leaving his community deep in the forest to go and learn Portuguese so that he could be a leader for his people in dealing with the modern world. He was wonderfully confident and spoken, and he made us all stand and hold hands while he sang a song of blessing and of creation. But he didn't mince his words about the impact of so many things. He spoke about the loss and the grief of having to send their children away to school in the local towns, and what happens to them and to the families behind. He told a particularly heartrending story of a little boy who went to school in one of the towns, and the teacher said to him, "Why have you got your face painted like that? It's ugly." That community ultimately withdrew their children from the school. An answer, and yet not an answer. Because what is the future of those children without an education? What's the future beyond the forest? That's the questions we have to. Or can they remain in the forest? These are the issues that were bubbling around all the time. The question of young people was to the forefront of many discussions, because there they are. The communities are moving from one way to another. These young people, often without access particularly to tertiary education, often living in places where there are few or no jobs. They're caught in transition. Their traditional community is over there, and they can see the other world out there, and where are they? In the middle of it. Employment, education, very key issues for Indigenous people across the globe. I went to another event where there was a discussion about the impact of climate change. And again, one of the Amazonians said, "We no longer celebrate big festivals for winter and summer because the climate has changed so much that we can't have them anymore." And he spoke so movingly about their role as the warriors for the forest, as the protectors of the forest, but people not understanding that they were there trying to protect it against the inroads of climate change. One afternoon I went to a big gathering in the UN, which is to celebrate and to remember human rights activists. Last year, 282 human rights activists were killed, protecting their land, their religion, a whole range of things. Of that 282, half were Indigenous, mostly dying protecting their lands from ranchers, loggers, and mining companies. Much was said about the inroads of mining companies on the lands, again, from the Arctic to the Amazon. A Nepalese woman representing disabled Indigenous people spoke of the history of Indigenous people down through the centuries as the Great Silence. There they are in countries across the globe, but virtually unnoticed and voiceless. My feeling, having heard these stories and met some of the people and listened again and again to the same stories about dispossession, of encroachment of land by mining companies, of the loss of the Sami people's reindeer grazing land to developers, and so it went on and on. But here at the UN and out in our countries, one of the things that I think we can do is stand in solidarity with Indigenous people and demand that they be given a voice. Demand that decisions not be made on their behalf unless they're right there in the middle of the decision-making process. Because unless that happens, this continual loss of rich culture, tradition, care for the environment, all those sorts of things that are vital to a community will be lost. And we will be the losers for that rich, vibrant culture that adds so much to our countries. So I suppose my plea to anybody who's listening to this is that we really do work to give Indigenous people a voice, to hear their voice, so that no longer can we speak about them as being shrouded in a great silence. Thank you.